if Zach LaVine is a player that you're going to put your eggs into that basket,
Sure.
if he's going to be a player that continues to do what he did last season, which is he played 74 games. He shot 51.1% from the field and 44.6% from the three, from three. He's one of the most efficient scoring guards in the league. He averaged, combined between the two stops, 23.3 points per game.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we talked about this too, this weird, like statistical anomaly. In 42 games with the Bulls, he shot 51.1% from the field and he shot 44.6% from three.
Mm-hmm.
In 32 games with the Kings, he shot 51.1% from the field and 44.6% from three. He shot identical numbers.
That's crazy.
Between the two stops. So if he can be that player or even close to that player for the next 4 years, then yeah, he's part of your core. I don't want to see the Kings do something crazy like do the Jimmy Butler extension that the Warriors did, where you're taking his $49 million salary, you're adding 8%, because at that point, 8% of $49 million is a lot of money going up, and then giving him another 3 years or something.
And just on the Golden State thing, they're trying to maximize the Steph Curry end of his career. Like they're in a different place than Sacramento is.
No, totally. But you still have to decide if he's going to be part of your core moving forward. Again, I don't have a problem with him being, you need a 23 point per game scorer who shoots 45% from three and 50% from the field. That's excellent. The problem is, in order to have that player, you need to have a great defensive minded small forward and a very, very good point guard that can play defense as well. And that's how you have to design the team around him. And as of right now, the Kings don't have those pieces. So it's tough to build around Zach LaVine and say he's part of your core. I agree. Like I've said this about him a million times and everyone always fights me on it. I agree with Scott Perry with what he said. Zach LaVine's been in the league 11 years. He's had foot surgery and he's had an ACL tear. Like, so there are two major injury issues with him. But on top of that, it's that he's been to one playoff series.
Yeah.
And that's not always an indictment on a single player. That it's
no doubt.
It's not fair, because certain players just are never put in a situation. And it's also, crazy that we went through like a 13-year stretch in the NBA where either Steve Kerr or Robert Horry won an NBA championship, right?
It's crazy.
So those things they happen. I'm not going to put it all on Zach LaVine that he's not a perennial.
But when he's been the focal point and his teams have been to one playoff series, that tells you a little, at least like a little something. And the reason, just with Zach LaVine, the reason, and I kind of wonder if this is going to shift, because the reason he was deemed untradeable during and after the 23-24 season was because that year he played in 25 games. He shot 45.2% from the field and 34.9% from three. That was down from the year before, where he did play 77 games, shot 48.5%, 37.5% from three. But the year before that, he was an all-star at 47.6% from the field, 38.9% from three. The year before that, he was an all-star at 50.7% from the field, 41.9% from three. So what you were seeing was a decline in production, a decline in efficiency, while also he's playing in 25 games. And this is a guy who, at various points in his career, struggled to play more than 60.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, man, he's 28. His numbers are going down. He's not healthy. This is a bad contract. I do wonder if after last year, where he plays in 74 games and was super efficient across two different stops, if now all of a sudden his contract with a couple years left becomes a little bit more enticing.
Well, I certainly think that his contract, if you get through this season, his contract will be easily movable the next year. I know 49 million is crazy, but that's what you're exactly right. It's a massive, like, expiring contract. So a team could go away from two players. They could go away from like a big money player that they just, or, what they don't, if you get into a big deal for a big money player, right? And you're going to say trade 3 or 4 first round picks for that player. it's easier to just have a bulk salary that goes and then is expiring, right? As opposed to having to nickel and dime your way to a $50 million player.
Yeah.
But like, to get back to what we were talking about right before we went to the break, or while we were on the break, my biggest concern is that, again, you have so much money tied up in the shooting guard position right now.
It's a lot.
Like, yeah, and it's possible. It is possible that maybe Zach LaVine becomes your small forward. He's 6'6". I know you give me that look, but like, let's be honest. Is he a downgrade defensively from DeMar DeRozan? Absolutely not.
No.
So my point being that if you can slide him to the 3, he's the exact same height as DeMar DeRozan. He's not built as big, and you're going to have some concerns, especially with Domantas Sabonis being your center in that situation. But I like him better on the wing defending than I do up at the top of the key.
Sure.
So it's just an easier position to defend from, right? Because you have the baseline, you have the out of bounds line, right? You have the sideline. So I would be okay with that. My concern is that the Kings can't find a point guard to put next to him at all. Like, if he moves to small forward, and now you have Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis in your starting lineup, and you go find a point guard that makes sense, however you do that, now you got Malik Monk off the bench. You're starting to see like how you're supporting Zach LaVine in the right way.
Sure.
And it might be that he's got to move to the small forward position to support him in the right way. My concern is that the Kings are going to get into this situation that they did, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, where it's like they keep cycling through like mid point guards, like middle of the pack. We don't really have enough money. Let's use our $14 million mid-level exception to go out there and find a point guard. And kind of do like what they did with Darren Collison and Ty Lawson, and you're just sitting there the whole time going, they're just space fillers. They're
So now's a bad time to say throw some money at Tyus Jones.
Yeah, exactly. So Tyus Jones is exactly the player that we're talking about, and like, if you have to bring in a Tyus Jones, but it's for 1 year, here's the problem.
Tyus Jones still an effective player, but go on.
He's an effective player, and he's effective enough that your team, with the group that we just talked about, if you're moving off of DeMar DeRozan to bring someone else in, but you're still in this same group of players, you're a, let's just say 38 to 48 win team. You're never going to be able to fill that point guard position. There's not going to be a point where a point guard that's good enough to upgrade is available, and you're just going to sit there and kind of be mid.
You're going to tread water, yeah.
You're going to tread water. Yeah. And again, it's not being disrespectful to Darren Collison, but when he was on the Kings as their starting point guard, he's between 20 and 30 and best point guards in the league. And it's not a good place to be in.
No, it's not. Not ideal, for sure.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder with Zach LaVine, because you mentioned about building around him. And I think if you're going to have Zach LaVine on your roster, then it's what we talked about with Domantas Sabonis. Like, you gotta make sure you're supplementing the roster the right way.
Yeah.
Because maybe the Zach LaVine Domantas Sabonis 2-man game is just awesome offensively, and if you surround him with the right pieces, all of a sudden you've got a playoff team on your hands. I kind of wonder, because this is another decision Scott Perry has to make. I don't think you can half-ass it one way or the other with Zach LaVine. I don't think you can go into this where you go, okay, Zach LaVine's just on. Again, I'm going to operate as though Scott Perry still believes what he said about Zach LaVine on his podcast a couple years ago, where Zach LaVine is at his best as a third option. Not a winning player, especially as a 1 or 2. He's got to be a third option. So let's just go with that. If that's what he still thinks about Zach LaVine, you can't. You have him. And if you can't move him, you can't just be like, oh, well, I just don't like him, so I'm going to build a separate team, and Zach LaVine's just kind of going to be on the roster. Because that's where you wind up with a weird team build. If they're going to have Zach LaVine, and maybe Scott Perry doesn't like Zach LaVine, thinks he's a third option, whatever, tough. This is the hand you're dealt. And if you're not able to move him, which maybe they will, but if you're not able to move him, I think you have to go, okay, we're committed to Zach LaVine being on the roster. Let's do this the right way. You can't view that as a handcuff.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And the other thing is, I mean, first of all, they had to have had a conversation before Scott Perry took the job about Zach LaVine specifically and Zach LaVine in general.
Yes,
Like,
I
right?
agree.
So about team building and all that stuff in general. And the question really does become like, is Scott Perry, does he have carte blanche to fix this thing in his image?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he going to be stuck with some of the ideas that your owner has and some of the ideas? Because, like, look, at the end of the day, I
Sure.
think the biggest mistake that was made here, you fired Mike Brown, that happened. Mike Brown had, like, the team had started to spiral. I got it. I
Mm-hmm.
understand.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing is that you allowed two people to make a decision on trading your best player
Mm-hmm.
who you knew probably weren't going to be there.
Yeah.
And you allow that to happen. And now it's, again, Zach LaVine is a Vivek like
Mm-hmm.
player.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Vivek player,
Mm-hmm.
straight up. And so how does Scott Perry deal with that aspect of this?
Mm-hmm.
And you can say, okay, well, maybe he holds out and says, okay, like I've got to deal with this for 2 years. And then we have a $49 million, break on the luxury,
Sure.
on the salary cap.
Mm-hmm.
But even at that point, you have to look at your salary cap and how's it designed, and will you have any money to spend in that offseason?
So that's the other. If that's how he's viewing this, and again, Scott Perry's not stupid. He didn't get to the Kings and go, "Yeah, I'm in," and then go, "Wait, Zach LaVine is here."
Wait, I didn't know.
Damn it!
Yeah.
Like he's not like that's not how this went, right?
Yeah.
But if let's go to the world where that's how he views this, where he goes, "Hey, man, in a couple of years we're gonna have a $49 million salary slot open up."
Mm-hmm.
If that's the goal here is to wait out the Zach LaVine contract, A, I don't think this is the right hire. But B, if that's what you're doing, you have to then you're tanking at that point. Winning now matters so much less than waiting out the Zach LaVine contract. Because if that's what you're doing and you're going, yeah, hey, we're gonna have this $40 million opened up, then cool. Start gaining assets.
Yeah.
Start tearing this thing down and figuring out what the future looks like after Zach LaVine. If all you're doing is waiting for the Zach LaVine contract to be over, which is why I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah,
because that's just a loser ass way to go. And Scott Perry did not give off in his press conference that he intends to do that. And I don't think Doug Christie wants to do that.
No. And like, look,
I just can't imagine they're sitting there going, "Oh man, can't wait till Zach LaVine is gone." Like, brother, you got him. Figure out how to win now.
And I'm going to keep pointing this out. Like the way Scott Perry described Zach LaVine is, if he's your third best player, your third option, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Zach LaVine is your third scoring option, I'll make this, and people can fight with me on this if not. I still think, Domantas Sabonis was a second option on a 48-win team. He can be a second option and as an offensive hub, with Zach LaVine being a number 2 scoring option, as long as you have that other player that's better. And again, like it kind of comes down to like offensive options versus like best players, right? So I would make the argument
in
that
crunch time, who has the ball in their hands?
Well, yeah, but that's not how a game. Okay, this is how I get your point there.
Mm-hmm.
In crunch time, who has a ball in their hands? It probably won't be Zach LaVine because he hasn't really proven that that's who he is in crunch time. Sometimes he is, but he's more of a, hey, we're down 12. I need you to go out there and score like 18 in the fourth. Than he is, hey, we're up 6 and I need you to sit there and maintain that lead with high level, efficient scoring down the stretch. I think, like, looking at the Kings this year, Keegan Murray's the 5th option on the offense for most of the season. He's not their 5th best player. He's probably their 3rd or 4th best player. And it's because his defense means so much more. And that's where, like, we get caught in the semantics of, is LaVine the second option or is he the 3rd option? It's like, if Zach LaVine is like your 2nd or 3rd leading scorer, but your 4th or 5th best player, I actually think that's okay because you just can't get away from the fact that he can't play defense.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I don't think it's super easy to go find 3 or 4 players who are better than Zach LaVine.
No, I agree.
And that's where when you start talking about first, second, third option, I think that's more what it's about. Is okay, Zach LaVine is clearly their best scorer right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if tie game, 10 seconds left, he's the guy you probably want taking the shot on this team. And I know that's such a specific instance, but that's kind of where the hierarchy is separated. The challenge then, I guess, is all right, Zach LaVine's here. You think he has to be the third option. Let's just say Domas is your second option. Now you need to find a number one.
Yeah.
That's not super easy.
No.
And so to me, it's okay if you're going to try and if it's Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray, it's just, I know we say this every time we talk about the Kings, just wings, dude. Start loading up defensively. See if you can muck up games that way and make it so Domantas Sabonis is the offensive hub with Zach LaVine as your leading scorer is an effective way to piece together 50 wins.
It's gonna be tough.
It's gonna be really tough.
Yeah.
There's no way to slice this where this is gonna be easy for Scott Perry and the Kings. There's no to me like one way to go about it. There's not like a hey, you definitely have to do this, and this.
Yeah. I mean, you can take a home run swing here.
Sure.
And be one of the worst defensive teams in the history of the game. Because that's what the home run swings, the point guards that may or may not be available.
Sure.
There are guys like John Morant. There are guys like Trae Young that do not play defense at all. And if you put them in a starting lineup alongside Zach LaVine as a shooting guard,
have a real problem.
You're going to have foul trouble every single. Domas won't even. He already leads the league in fouls, and it's because of the same exact thing.
Would not get easier.
Nope.
For sure. All right.